It's been a very hot summer, and on top of that, the need to physically distance has led us to get outside to explore nature. As TVO turns 50 this year, we're reaching back to our archives for a look at some very Ontario stories. 2006 also had some scorching temperatures, and the program Studio 2 went to find out about the joys of the Credit River. Have a look.
I've been fishing the Credit for approximately 30 years, and it's been good to me. Water's pretty. It's one of the last trout streams in southern Ontario that's kept its quality of fishing and the clarity of the water. And it's just that it's so close to home. You know, it's like a 35, 40-minute drive for me. So I can be here in a short time.
The Credit River captures an area that's about 1,000 square kilometers in size. It's about 100 miles from the top of the watershed in Orangeville down to Port Credit. Within that area, we capture the city of Mississauga and city of Brampton and the town of Caledon. We also have drainage from Georgetown and Acton and Erin, so it's quite an extensive area. Credit Valley Conservation Authority was created almost exactly 50 years ago today. And it's really a reflection of community interest in the river and the watershed. It's a partnership between the 11 municipalities, the province, and the residents and landowners within the area. And we're responsible for the watershed and its management and stewardship. The Credit River is a very important area within southern Ontario. The fish that are found within the river are world-renowned. People come from everywhere to fish it because of the diversity of species that are within the river and the beautiful landscape that can be found in many areas, such as the Forks of the Credit.
The sound of the water over the riffles and everything, and just hoping that there's a fish behind each boulder, and just walking down the river and practicing my wading, practicing my casting, and seeing a rising trout. The challenge is there. As soon as you see a rising trout, the challenge is there. He's there, and I'm here, and then we're going to play that game. I'll cast, and he looks at the fly. If he doesn't like it, I'll change my fly. I'll cast again. He'll make another move for it, and if he didn't spook him, he'll come for it. That's a great place to be. It really is. My daughter was born in 1986. And I brought her up here her first summer when she was 6 months old in a pack sack. And I'd carry her up and down the river while I fished because I didn't want to babysit in Toronto. And then later on, when she was like 2 years old, I gave her a fishing rod and I made sure that she wouldn't get too wet. And I taught her how to cast a fly. And she was my company. When she was younger, in her formative years, like when she was 7 and 8 years old, 9 years old, she'd fish with me 2 or 3 times a week. And now that she's a teenager, once every 3 weeks, once every 4 weeks. Yeah, but she still likes it.
I've been fishing with my dad for about 17 years, ever since I was a little baby. And the part that I like about fishing is that it's quiet. There's not that many people around. I get to spend time with my dad that I don't usually get to spend with him. And it's beautiful around here. It's pretty. You get to like chill. I've noticed that there's more people here than when I was little. Before, when we came fishing, there never used to be that many people around. But like we always see people coming down the river while we're fishing, or we see other people. I think that my dad's catching smaller fish. I don't think he's catching as many big fish as he used to. Maybe that could be a difference in when I was younger.
The size of the fish in the Credit River has been going downhill because of the people taking fish out here. And they're coming back. There's more, like since last year when they implemented a little bit of no-kill in certain sections of the water, especially Trout Unlimited did a lot of work here. There's a lot more fish than there was 5, 6 years ago. And it makes it more interesting, a little more entertainment.
Oh, there's a big one over there.
The river and its watershed have been facing incredible challenges over the last 20 to 25 years with all the growth that's being experienced within the Greater Toronto Area. The watershed is sitting right on the boundary of the GTA, and so we're getting a lot of growth pressures from the southern portions of our watershed. The city of Mississauga is virtually completely developed at this point, and the city of Brampton is now growing from east to west. So urbanization is probably the greatest threat currently being experienced in the watershed.
From a cedar swamp in the hills of Mono onto Lake Ontario, this trusting river of rapid walks where the native traders would go.
Just so close to Toronto, and yet it's 15 degrees cooler up here in the summertime. If you want to cool off, this is the place to come to. It's pretty, especially in July in the evening. And the birds start singing, whew, peace and quiet, it really is. Yeah, all the troubles, they melt, they disappear. Like, I can't wait to wake up in the morning to get here. I can fall asleep in about 2 seconds and I go, oh, another beautiful day to go to the trout stream. That's the way I think about it. I love it.
From the highlands of the Niagara Scarp, where the Credit River flows.
Oh, maybe tomorrow we'll catch a bigger one.
Well, that almost 100 kilometers of river that spans in the north from Orangeville through Caledon and down to Mississauga is as popular as ever. With us now for an update from the Credit Valley Conservation Authority in Thornhill, Ontario, Deborah Martin-Downs, Chief Administrative Officer, and in Brampton, Jeff Payne, Deputy CAO and Director, Corporate Services. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. It's
Thank
nice
you.
to be here.
So you both work at the Credit Valley Conservation Authority. Looking at that piece on the Credit River 14 years after it first aired on TVO, what stands out to you? Deborah, I'll start with you.
Well, I think the most important thing is it actually looks very much the same. And I think that in a highly urbanizing environment is a pretty good news story. Mike Pudister, who was in the film, he just retired last year after 30 years with Credit Valley. And the stressors that he noted are still the ones that we're dealing with today as well.
Okay, we'll talk more about that. But Jeff, when you look at that, what do you think?
Two things stand out to me when I look at that clip. First, people continue to come to the watershed and the Credit River for their recreational pursuits, be it fishing, hiking, paddling, or just being outdoors. Activities that residents and visitors alike enjoy at our Credit Valley conservation areas. And secondly, the sense of the love of the Credit River and the grassroots community desire to help protect, that remains true today. It's every bit as strong 15 years later.
I used to live close to there. I used to go to the Riverwood Conservatory with my children, and it's just so beautiful. For people who don't live in the area, we do have a map that you gave us, and the map shows how big the Credit Valley, the Credit River watershed is, excuse me. Deborah, can you walk us through this map and tell us, generally speaking, what we're seeing?
Sure. So the Credit River watershed is about 1,000 square kilometers and 100 kilometers long, as you've already noted. It takes us from the town of Orangeville all the way through Caledon, through part of the town of Halton Hills as well, through Brampton, and then eventually through the city of Mississauga, where it empties into Lake Ontario. The watershed is home to almost 1 million people now, and 87% of that population lives in Brampton and Mississauga, so it is very concentrated. And then the other part of the watershed that's kind of important for the environmental piece is that the top end is very rural, and where it sort of has that little indent, it goes into a very urban environment. So the rural nature of the watershed really protects and helps the bottom part of the watershed.
It really takes my breath away to know that, well, Ontario is a very beautiful province, but for people to just have access to this nature, to basically walk outside their door and it's there. Jeff, what do you think has been the biggest change to the region over the past 14 years?
Without a doubt, the biggest change has been in population. The population of the Credit River watershed has increased by nearly 240,000 people in that 15-year period. That's a 35% increase in just that short a period of time. This growth has resulted in significant land use changes with more people. There's more development. That means more pavement, more hard surfaces, and less green space. So the growth is resulting in intensification, which includes high rises and vertical developments and smaller lots. And this generally means less outdoor space for people, which makes conservation areas even that much more important today than they were 15 years ago. The Greenbelt Plan, I think everyone in Ontario is familiar with it, identifies where urbanization should not happen in order to provide permanent protection to the agricultural land base and ecological features and function that occur on the natural landscape. Those regulations are very important to protecting these rural areas of our watershed.
You mentioned that there's more development, more people using the spaces because, it's outdoor space for them. Does that have a negative impact on the watershed, Jeff?
I wouldn't say the number of visitors in and of itself, either to our parks or within the watershed, is either a good or a bad thing from that point of view. If we take our parks, for example, we've worked really hard to build the capacity of our system to ensure that we continue to have a balance between recreation and conservation. And that's very important to us. We see every visitor that comes to us as an opportunity to inform and educate about the importance of natural green spaces for not only the protection of plants and animals, but also the important role natural green spaces play in human health. The rapid growth has indeed been a challenge, and it's had a significant impact on the landscape. But we've worked really hard with our municipal partners to implement new solutions to help mitigate and offset the impacts of these growths.
Do you also think that when people have ownership over something, that if people do go out and enjoy the space and they feel like it's a part of their community, do you find that people become more invested in conserving it and taking care of it?
Absolutely. The number of visitors that we've seen over the past 10 years has increased by nearly 160%. So in 2010, we saw about 350,000 visitors, and by 2019, we're over 900,000, about 905,000 people coming through our park system. And just to give you some kind of a perspective on that, iconic Algonquin National Park that everybody is familiar with, in 2019 saw about 1 million visitors. Our conservation areas, in a fraction of that space, saw 900,000 visitors. And that's amazing when you compare the space we have to the vastness of Algonquin. So truly, I think those opportunities to educate and inform people are really important for future conservationists and also just the overall health and well-being of Ontarians.
In that clip that we showed earlier from 14 years ago, Deborah, we saw a father and daughter fly fishing. Is that still something that people do on the credit?
Oh, absolutely. There's quite a strong fly fishing contingent that comes out to the river. In fact, one of our board members on our foundation is an avid fly fisherman, and he joined the foundation because he wanted to help to make sure that he still could fly fish on the Credit River. And that I think he also thought maybe he could get some insider information as to where the best places to fish were. But I think people are really trying to give back. We have communities like Trout Unlimited, who are typically fly fishermen as well, who have been working with us to restore the river and to participate in habitat restoration and just general give backs to the river so that they can continue to pursue their pastimes.
And how is the fish population doing?
Well, we have some good news, bad news stories. So the good news stories are that brook trout is our signature species in the credit, and they are still a very prominent species. They have experienced some up and down declines over the past few years, but they're still present, and that gives us a population to work with and something to restore. They're very sensitive. The brook trout say we want really cold water, we want very clean water, and we want no contaminants in that water. So if they get all those conditions and strong groundwater contributions as well, then they continue to thrive. So we know that they're doing well. We also have a number of other lake species that come in. So we have stocked Chinook salmon and coho salmon, and they make a great run of salmon in the lower watershed through the season. So we get a lot of fishermen down there who are taking advantage of those huge fish that come in. We've also, since '05, have had Atlantic salmon restocked in the river. And Atlantic salmon were a huge species in Lake Ontario, and all the tributaries along the north shore of Lake Ontario had huge runs of salmon. And when you think about back in the 1800s, when the area was being settled, there were a lot of dams installed. There was a lot of people fishing for the fish for their food supply, and then clearing of the land. So ultimately, we actually what we call extirpated Atlantic salmon. So they were extinguished from Lake Ontario, and they are working now to try and bring them back to Lake Ontario. So bring back the salmon is the process and the program. And so we've been successful in getting some back in the river, but not to the extent that we were hoping they would. So overall, lots of fish in the river, lots of good trout and salmon in the river for people to fish for, but lots of work we need to do to restore their habitat, to make better habitat for them so they can be more self-sustaining.
When we talk about the health of the fish population, what does that signal about the health of the watershed?
Well, I think when you have diversity is one way we look at whether we have healthy systems. So if you only had one kind of fish, then it could say it's very healthy because brook trout sometimes are the only fish you will find in an area, but it signals a very narrow range of habitat conditions. So we have a tremendous number of fish in the river, different kinds of fish that need different kind of habitats, and they're thriving. So it says to us that the river has good resilience and good variety of conditions that support a variety of animals in the water. Yeah, so go ahead. Yeah.
No, sorry, not to interrupt. Jeff, what impact has climate change had on the watershed?
I think that, like all parts of the environment, we're seeing climate change having lasting and sustained impacts. And I think the concern we all have to have is the rate at which that change is starting to accelerate. So in 2006, Al Gore brought his climate change slideshow to the public in an Academy Award-winning documentary, The Inconvenient Truth. And that changed everything for CVC. At that time, we were able to successfully present to the region of Peel a case that climate change was a local priority. It needed to be addressed locally. While global change is occurring, the solution truly is about a multitude of diverse people and programs coming together at the local level to make small actions that make a lasting difference. So what are we seeing in our watershed? We're seeing warmer summers, we're seeing wetter winters, we're seeing more intense storms. And this is impacting us both in the programs that we offer. So we have a much shorter winter season than we used to, not able to offer cross-country skiing or perhaps as much ice fishing as we would in the past. We're also seeing stressors in the summer with longer, drier periods or those intense storms which cause significant damage to our lands. And that's something we all need to be concerned about and watchful of.
We're having a lot of conversations about the impacts, the economic impacts of COVID-19 and to municipalities, to the purse strings, so to speak. What's being done by local municipalities to address the increase in flooding, Jeff?
The increase in flooding, I think we continue. We're very fortunate in our watershed to have the support of all of our municipalities. And through the levy and from Peel, a special levy, so additional funding that they provide, we are making investments to try to address the issues with flooding as best we can. One of the most significant advancements or advantages that our watershed has is we've made a tremendous investment in a network of gauges that help us not only monitor water quality, but also measure the depth and speed of the river, allowing us to alert people when there are dangers that are resulting from flooding. This allows us to be much more proactive and to get the word out to first responders in the events of these situations. And by doing so, I think this really demonstrates the local value of conservation authorities. We are the boots on the ground. We're the people in place to be able to make a difference every day when it comes to things like flooding and also the protection of the natural environment and helping to mitigate the impacts of climate change day in and day out.
We only have about a minute 30 left, but I wanted to get from both of you your impressions. Where is there still a lot of work to do when it comes to the watershed? Deborah?
Well, for a lot of what we have to do, it comes back to the flooding and the climate change piece. And that is, we have to work with our municipalities to help them address implementation of stormwater management throughout the municipalities. The city of Mississauga, for example, 70% of the area was developed before modern stormwater management controls. So basically, when it rains, everything runs into the sewer and into the river, which means there's no time to hold that water back. So that's something that we're really working with municipalities on. And I think the other big piece is to start to bring green infrastructure back into our communities. And what I mean by green infrastructure is lots of street trees, lots of permeable surfaces to absorb water, whether it's green roofs or whether it's what we call rain gardens or bioswales that you'll see in some of the places through Mississauga, for example, and in Brampton, that we have to do more of those to slow down the water, to clean the water, and to give the streams a little more chance to be resilient to the climate change pieces. So and then I think the final piece that, and certainly COVID exposed this tremendously, is that we don't have enough green space. So we got lots of people coming, and we can't keep going with just the numbers of green spaces that we have today. So we need to expand those green spaces and invest in some of the infrastructure, whether it's parking or washrooms or additional visitor centers and activities for people to do, because clearly there's a demand, and if we're going to have a healthy population, we need to have healthy green spaces to support them.
So Deborah, I'll let you have the last word. Thank you so much. We really appreciate both of your insights. Deborah, Jeff, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
I know where I'm going for the weekend to hang out.
The Agenda in the Summer with Nam Kiwanuka is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.